Welcome back to Button Tree Book Club. This week, we are kind of continuing our Disney theme. Last week, we did A Twisted Tale, Frozen, Conceal, Don't Feel. This week, we are switching to the Villains series, and this is Poor Unfortunate Souls. There's a lot I could say to compare what I read last week, Twisted Tales, and now this week with Villains. But first I want to say overall this book, I give it 3 to 4 stars. I liked it. I read it in a day. It was pretty easy reading. I could tell this book was aimed for probably older elementary, middle school, or just adults that love Disney, which, hey, I'm one of those. So we're talking about another Disney book. What's different between these series is with the Twisted Tales, it really is like the original story, just with like, what if this happened? So it's different. It's a different story with the same ideas, the same dialogue. There's a lot that's very similar. With the Villains' Tales, you see a completely different side of the original story. So there's not really any changes, there's just more to it. And it's from the villain's perspective. So in this case, we learn a lot about the villain Ursula. And I love Little Mermaid. I mean, hello, the hair. I mean, my hair is because of Little Mermaid. I love the Little Mermaid. Ursula's great. I mean, I like a lot of Disney characters. Little Mermaid's probably in my top 10 favorite Disney stories. Ursula, maybe not my favorite villain. She's probably up there. She's sassy. She's wild. But I mean, the thing is, like in this book, she is really dark. She is really dark. But I mean, she's a villain. I mean, villains are dark. But the one thing I will say that I didn't expect is how dark they're making the villains in this series. Because I was like, oh, this is still going to be very Disney feel. No. I would not recommend this to kids too young that like have a certain level of innocence with Disney. Because if I'd read this in like middle school or late elementary, I don't know if I would have liked it much. Like, but that's who it's written for, and I get that. I guess it just depends on what you think of Disney. If you love the villains, then you'll love this. This is great. But like it's a little dark. It's a little intense. Like right off the bat, Ursula is being evil. But again, like villains are evil. Evil people do terrible things. So, I mean, I can't really be surprised. What's really cool about this is, so Ursula is the main focus, but there's this whole other world that exists. And it's the idea that all of the Disney villains are connected. They know each other, or they know of each other, and they're all living in this similar world. At this point, this is book 3 of the series. So before it, there was one about Beauty and the Beast, and there was one about Snow White, and they make references to that. Now, I don't feel like those books have been spoiled for me, because I did check. It's recommended to read in order, but they have said you can read them out of order, and it's not too overly telling, depending on what you're interested in. And, I mean, after reading this, like, I'm probably going to go back and read 1 and 2, just so I'm, like, I want to make sure I catch up on any behind-the-scene things, and pick up on those, like, subtle plot lines that I'm sure are going to become more important as I go along. But this book was really good. One thing I will say about the writing style, they definitely pull from the movie. I'm gonna say this right now, like, they just flat out write all the lyrics to Poor Unfortunate Souls out. So for about a page, you're just reading the song lyrics. And if you don't start singing the song in your head while you're reading it, you're not a true Disney fan. And that is exactly what I was doing the whole time. I was just sitting there kind of humming the tune as I read it. But yeah, there are some direct quotes. There are not as many in this book as there were with the Twisted Tales. With Twisted Tales, it was a lot of direct copying and a lot of repeating the same story just with different things. There was not as much of that. There was some, like I said, Poor Unfortunate Souls is in there. And when you're titled that, I mean, I knew something like that was going to happen, but I was like, you're just writing the lyrics. All right, let's go. One thing I will say, though, is this book is very repetitive. And I think that's telling of who it's aimed for, because younger readers, they need to hear things multiple times to help them remember, like, oh, this is important, this character's important, what happened to this character's important. Because there's a lot of repetition. It talks about one character, how much they want to find this one character, and it's mentioned like 10 times in like a chapter. And I'm like, we get it, this character's more, but it keeps coming back. And I'm like, we get it. But I'm like, well, for a younger reader, they would need to hear it a few times. They need to be reminded, because there's a lot of small plots going on in this. Like there's the main plot with Ursula and like the Little Mermaid story. That's a big component of this. But the story actually starts before that, and we learn a little more about Triton and Ursula and how they know each other and their history, and I'm not spoiling that one in case you don't know, because again, I don't know if this is technically part of official Disney lore or not, but it would make sense, except then I've got some questions about the Little Mermaid sequel. I don't think that falls in, like, Little Mermaid sequel, like, messed up so much canon. Because it's like, why didn't we know anything about what was going to happen in the sequel in the first one? Like, oh, come on, Ursula's got a sister? No. Okay, but the sequel's fine, and the movie sequel's fine in its own right, but I prefer this, and I prefer where this is going far more than I will prefer that sequel. I liked the story. We learn a lot about Ursula's past. I've actually always been curious. Like, I think that's my favorite thing about going into this series, is we're gonna learn about the villain's past. We're not gonna sympathize with them much. I mean, maybe you will. I mean, I guess it depends on who it is. With this one, I didn't sympathize much. I mean, a little. There was a teeny bit at one point. But mostly I was like, nah. With most of these Disney villains, they bring it on themselves. They are hateful and nasty, and I have very little sympathy, because I'm one of those people that's like, yes, you can go through something terrible, you can go through horrible things, but you can still be a good person. You don't have to be mean and hateful and spiteful and cruel. You made a choice on how to respond to your circumstances. And she chose to be hateful, cruel, spiteful, nasty, and so on and so forth. But no, I highly recommend this. I'm gonna go back and read book 1 and 2 because I haven't read them yet. I started with this one, and now I'm like, oh, I need to go back. I already I own The Beast Within, which is book 2, but I don't own the first one because when I first got into these and found out about them and started getting them, I didn't realize there was an order, because I thought they were like the Twisted Tales. The Twisted Tales do not have an order. They are all very individual. The worlds don't connect. None of that, like this does. So I'll probably go back and read 1 and 2. I highly recommend this. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. I think it's what a lot of people struggled with is the fact that it is written for younger readers. So it's an easy read. It's just, it can feel a little tedious and repetitive at times if you're like, okay, we get it. But it's there because younger readers need that repetition. And again, that's the teacher of me knowing repetition is so important, especially when you want a child to remember important details. They need to hear it a few times so they remember later. So that is my review for Poor Unfortunate Souls. So let's do our random drawing for next week. Alright, I got my big basket of books. Alright, let's see. I'm gonna dig down deep in here. And... ooh. This is a long one. Ooh, I'm excited about this one. So this is actually a book I got very recently from a recommendation from someone. This book is Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. This is a nonfiction book. I don't do many of those, but this is one where, believe it or not, I'm actually like one of the most introverted people you'll probably ever meet. And someone recommended this to me. I was just there like, oh, it seems like something you would enjoy reading. So, and I haven't gotten to read much of it. Like, I read a little bit when I first got it because I was so excited about a book that's all about being introverted. And I just love the concept, like, Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Because, man, oh man, do I feel that. There are times when I'll go through just day-to-day life, and I'm just like, man, we are such a talkative, like, humans are so talkative. Extroverts can be so talkative. And hey, power to extroverts, power to introverts. But I'll be doing a lot of discussing about introverts, extroverts, and like, oh man, I'm excited about this one. This may be a longer video, and there may be something a little bit different about it. I haven't decided. I mean, I just drew it. I may try to do things a little bit differently since it is nonfiction. It's not just discussing, like a story. There's actually going to be a lot more to it. So next time it'll be a little bit longer. There'll probably be a little more to it. It'll look a little different probably. Not sure. You'll have to wait and see because I'm not even sure yet. If you are not subscribed to our channel, you should be. We are constantly adding new content. We're working on crafts, we're working on music, we're working on lots of other fun things, and they will be coming soon. So you should subscribe and come back soon. See you guys next time. Bye!